A British marketing professional landed in Kuala Lumpur with the same remote job, the same salary, and the same working hours he had in London. 12 months later, he was saving money for the first time in his adult life. Not because his income had increased, because the gap between what he earned and what his life actually cost had fundamentally restructured. And once that restructuring happened, the idea of reversing it became genuinely difficult to justify. He is not an outlier. He is the pattern. And the pattern, across dozens of Western expats who have been in Malaysia anywhere from 2 to 15 years, is consistent enough to be structural rather than anecdotal. This video is not a relocation advertisement. It is not a list of things Malaysia does better than everywhere else. What it is a precise examination of 7 structural realities that cause internationally mobile professionals, people who came to Malaysia for a year or for a project or simply out of curiosity, to rebuild their lives here and find, when the moment of return arrives, that the calculation no longer works in their home country's favor. 7 reasons. Each one measurable. Each one documented in the experiences of real people who did not expect to stay and then could not find a compelling reason to leave. Welcome to Shifted Perspective. We look past the mainstream narrative to find what the world gets consistently wrong about the countries it thinks it already understands. We publish 3 documentaries every week. Hit subscribe and the bell right now so you do not miss a single one. Now let's build the full picture. The first reason is financial margin, and the specific psychological freedom that margin produces. A fully furnished 2-bedroom apartment in a well-connected Kuala Lumpur neighborhood, security, gym, swimming pool, costs between RM 2,500 and RM 3,500 per month. The equivalent in London, Sydney, or Toronto costs 3 to 4 times that figure for a comparable standard of space and amenity. A complete hawker meal, rice, protein, vegetables, fresh juice, costs under RM 8 at any of the hundreds of food courts operating within residential distance of most KL apartments. The same nutritional content, prepared to the same standard, purchased in any Western capital, costs between 8 and 15 times that figure. The arithmetic is not subtle. For a professional earning in dollars, pounds, or euros and spending in Malaysian ringgit, the exchange rate differential is not a bonus. It is a structural life redesign. The British marketing professional did not get a raise. He changed the denominator. And once you change the denominator, returning to a cost structure that eliminated the surplus means choosing financial constraint over a version of your own life that felt expansive. Most people, when confronted with that choice explicitly, decline to make it. The second reason is food, and the specific, irreversible effect that genuine culinary diversity at low cost has on a person's tolerance for the alternative. Malaysia sits at the intersection of Malay, Chinese, Indian, and dozens of indigenous culinary traditions. What that intersection produces, in practice, is a range of freshly prepared, deeply flavored food available within walking distance of almost any urban address at prices that remove cost from the decision entirely. An American expat, 5 years in Kuala Lumpur, returned home to Ohio for Christmas. She described sitting in an airport eating a $12 sandwich and feeling a specific, non-dramatic despair, not homesickness, but the precise recognition that her reference point for what food could be had permanently shifted, and that a $12 airport sandwich represented a regression she had not chosen and could not intellectually accept. That recalibration is not trivial. It changes daily life in ways that accumulate invisibly until the moment of contrast makes them visible all at once. The third reason is climate, specifically the elimination of seasonal mood compression. Malaysia sits between 2 and 7 degrees north of the equator. The temperature is warm every day. There are no gray months. No seasonal depression that arrives in October and lifts in April. No 4-month contraction of outdoor life into heated interiors and early darkness. An Australian expat articulated the arithmetic with precision. She used to lose 4 months of her year to weather. In Malaysia she has 12. That is not a quality of life improvement. That is a 33% increase in the usable year. When you experience an uninterrupted 12-month cycle of warmth and sunlight and then return to a climate that reclaims a third of the year, the loss is felt as a physical subtraction rather than an abstract preference. The fourth reason is healthcare, and the specific psychological transformation that occurs when medical attention stops being a financial risk calculation. Malaysia's private hospital sector, operating under Joint Commission International Accreditation Standards, delivers specialist consultations for between RM 150 and RM 300. Diagnostic imaging MRI CT is available within days of a GP referral, without the gatekeeping delays that characterize both the U.S. insurance system and the NHS waiting list structure. An American freelancer, operating without health insurance, accessed an MRI within 2 days of requesting one, received results the same afternoon, and spoke to a specialist before the week ended. He reported that in his previous life, he had systematically avoided medical attention because the financial exposure of a consultation was a variable he could not absorb. In Malaysia, that avoidance behavior stopped. The healthcare system became a resource rather than a threat. That shift, from chronic background anxiety to simple access, is a quality of life change that is structurally very difficult to surrender voluntarily. The fifth reason is community, specifically the quality of social access that Malaysia's multicultural architecture produces at no cost and with no barrier to entry. Within 3 months of arriving, a typical KL resident has been invited to celebrate Hari Raya at a Malay neighbor's open house, attended a Chinese New Year gathering through a colleague, and been present at a Deepa Valley celebration in a local Indian community space. 3 major civilizational traditions. 1 neighborhood. 1 quarter. The social density this produces, the unremarkable daily fact of genuine cultural plurality operating at street level, creates a form of community that many Western expats report had been absent from their home environments in ways they had not consciously identified until the contrast made it visible. The 6th reason is the lifestyle arithmetic, and what it reveals about what a given income actually purchases in 2 different cost environments. In Kuala Lumpur, a modest remote income sustains a furnished apartment, regular dining at quality restaurants, a gym membership, monthly regional travel, and consistent saving. In London, Sydney, or Toronto, the same income sustains a shared house, a packed lunch, and a calculation before every discretionary decision about whether the expenditure is affordable. A Canadian graphic designer described the comparison without ambiguity: same hours, same work, same income. In KL, a cleaner, regular meals, travel every other month, no financial anxiety. In Toronto, a choice between groceries and recreation. The lifestyle arithmetic does not favor the return. And when people have run that arithmetic explicitly, not as a fantasy but as an actual comparison of what their income purchases in each environment, the result tends to produce a decision that looks permanent from the outside and feels inevitable from the inside. The 7th reason is the reverse culture shock, and it is the one that nobody discusses before they experience it. The long-term Malaysia expat goes home to visit. The first day is warm. The family is there. The familiar rhythms return. And then, gradually, something starts to feel off. Everything is more expensive than memory recorded it. The pace carries a stress that had become invisible when it was constant and becomes visible immediately upon return. The sense of possibility, that specific feeling that life is expansive and being actively built, begins to compress. And then the return flight to Kuala Lumpur, somewhere over the clouds, produces an exhale. Not relief from something bad. Relief from something that no longer fits. A British woman, 8 years in KL, described it with precision. She loves her family and loves visiting home, but realized some years ago that going back had started to feel like a step backwards. Not because home had deteriorated, but because she had grown into a version of herself that only existed in the space Malaysia had given her to become it. That is the real reason. Not the food, not the cost, not the weather. Those are the conditions. The reason is that the person the expat became inside those conditions is not transferable back to the environment they left. And they are not willing to leave that person behind. One honest note before the end. Malaysia carries real complexity. The MM2H visa program has increased its financial requirements substantially and requires proper legal advice before any long-term plan is built around it. Traffic in KL during peak hours is a genuine daily variable. Rural internet infrastructure drops significantly outside major urban centers. The political environment involves real uncertainties around residency and business regulation that require active monitoring. The expats who thrive here are the ones who arrived with clear eyes, found that the reality still exceeded their expectations, and built their lives accordingly. That is the standard. Not the fantasy version of the place. The accurate version of it, which turns out to be compelling enough on its own terms. Now I want to hear from you specifically. If you are a Western expat in Malaysia, or if you went back and stayed, tell me the precise moment the calculation shifted. Not the general experience. The exact variable that made return feel like a regression. Drop it in the comments. That thread is the data set this video was built to generate. Subscribe. Share this with someone who is still running the wrong arithmetic. 3 documentaries every week, and the next one goes somewhere this space has not been taken yet. We will see you there.